8 spine-chilling true trucker horror stories revealed. Haunted roads and sinister encounters await. The night was thick with fear, a darkness that squeezed the breath from Sarah's lungs. She gripped the steering wheel of her old delivery van, feeling the rumble beneath her, every bump in the cracked asphalt echoing the whispers of long-lost truckers. In this economically hollow Midwest town, dreams of escape vanished into the fields of rusted factories and ghostly farms. Here, in the stillness that blanketed the roads, something unseen loomed, hungry for the weakness of dread. With every mile she drove, the unsettling quiet pressed deeper into her bones. Abandoned cars lined the roadside like sentinels of sorrow. She knew the tales, people who vanished, swallowed whole by the past, lingering here in the echoes. When her GPS began to glitch, the flickering screen sparking confusion, her gut twisted in anxiety. Recalculating, it stuttered, leading her off the main road and onto an overgrown path that felt like a thread unraveling from reality. The tires crunched over gravel, replacing the familiar hum of pavement. Shadows danced around her, wrapping the van in an embrace that promised entrapment. As the darkness thickened, Sarah's heart raced, matching the beat of her growing panic. Distant train whistles echoed like warnings. She arrived at the abandoned silo, empty but for the restless wind that seemed to carry the trapped cries of the missing. A figure emerged from the blackness ahead, standing resolute beside a decaying tow truck, rust eating at its frame. He wore a crooked smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Need any help?" His voice slid into her window, sticky with hope but coated in something unsettling. Sarah's instincts screamed. She pressed the accelerator, determined to escape the claws of fear hunting in the night. Just as she thought she might be free, she caught a glimpse of bizarre markings on the roadside, crude symbols etched deep in the earth's skin. Locals spoke of them in hushed tones, hexes that signaled the grasp of fate on unwary souls. Her pulse quickened, terror coiling like a snake around her throat. Each turn cut deeper into the horror of being lost, stranded in an isolated nightmare without a way back. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each passing moment, the weight of the past pressed harder against her chest. The figure became her shadow as she glanced nervously in the rearview mirror. His silhouette bled into the darkness, a persistent reminder of the town's grim secrets, tales whispered around the diner counter where everyone thought they were safe. As fear began clawing at her sanity, Sarah understood one truth: she wasn't just dodging superstitions, she was unearthing the treachery buried deep within her own community. Feeling the unease ripple through her, she realized that here, in this forsaken place, all was not as it seemed. The whispers in the wind were an anthem of betrayal, and now she stood on the edge, staring into an abyss that threatened to swallow her whole. Would she confront the horrors waiting in the shadows, or would she, too, become another victim of the very darkness that had haunted her community for years? The engine of Sarah's van sputtered, a sickly sound in the overwhelming quiet. Panic spiked through her veins. She pressed the gas pedal harder, but the van staggered, stuttering like it was mirroring her own terror. In the rearview mirror, the man's crooked smile lingered, a treacherous reflection that made her heart race even faster. As she glanced around, searching for any hint of salvation, the darkness closed in. Tall, twisted trees loomed on either side of the gravel path, their gnarled branches clawing at the night sky as if they wanted to ensnare her. She shot a look down the road ahead, nothing but dense underbrush and shadows. No sign of the main road. The winding path felt endless, like a nightmare where you just run and run, but never escape. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, making her jump. Heart pounding, she fished it out. No signal. Only a flicker of her battery, warning her time was slipping away. She glanced at the GPS once more. Recalculating, it chirped again, a mocking reminder that she was beyond help, lost in this twilight realm. As she forced herself to breathe, the air turned cold. Chills crawled up her spine, and goosebumps littered her arms. The headlights swept over the road, revealing shapes among the undergrowth. Something moved. A flash of white, just a glimpse of something animalistic, darted into the brush. But was it an animal? Or something else? Anxiety twisted in her gut, and she couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were watching her from the shadows. The van coughed again, louder this time, jolting her back to reality. She had to find a way out of here. With a sudden burst of determination, she turned the wheel hard, brakes squeaking as she skidded to a stop. The mysterious figure was still behind her, too close for comfort, but she couldn't linger. With every ounce of adrenaline, she threw the van back into motion, trying to keep her focus steady. "Stay calm," she whispered to herself. "You can make it." But the quiet was shattered by a loud crack, a deafening sound that echoed like thunder, bouncing off the trees and making her jump. The van jolted as she hit something, panic settling over her like a suffocating blanket. Had she just run over something? Her pulse raced. It wouldn't end like this, not here, not now. Breathless, she braked hard and turned around to look, heart in her throat. The headlights cut through the dark, revealing nothing but a stretch of gravel. Her heart sank, but there was no time to dwell on it. Shadows flicked just at the edge of her peripheral vision, a blur of movement that sent her heart racing again. Someone or something was out there. Suddenly, a low laugh pierced the silence, chilling her to the bone. It came from behind the van, a sound so visceral it felt like it clawed at her ears. She whipped her head around, but the night swallowed whatever had made that dreadful noise. The figure was closer now, standing by her driver's side, watching her. "Lost?" he called, his smile a twisted mask of joy that made her stomach churn. Fear pulled at her insides, and instinct screamed at her to drive away. But instead, she hesitated. What did he want from her? Was he part of this town, or something far worse? With her heart pounding like a drum, she gripped the wheel tighter. It was now or never. Just as she readied her next move, a second figure stepped out from the shadows on the passenger side, blocking her escape with wide, hollow eyes that glinted with a predatory hunger. "Get out of the van," they whispered, voices melding into one. The abyss beckoned her in, and the weight of their presence was like lead pressing down on her chest. She had to choose: face the darkness or die trying to escape it. The figures approached, and just as she was about to hit the gas, a faint sound caught her attention, something that made her freeze. The distant train whistle wailed again, echoing off the shadows, only this time, it was closer. The path ahead faded into blackness, and the threat loomed, pressing ever closer. What more awaited her in this haunting silence? The figures drew nearer, the tension stretching thicker than the surrounding darkness. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, and her heart blared a frantic rhythm, drowning out the soft rasp of their footsteps on gravel. She could barely think, her mind raced through potential ways to escape as their faces blurred into one, a grotesque mask of malice etched in her memory. "Get out," one of them urged again, voice dripping with false concern. "We just want to talk." It felt like ice water coursing through her veins. Talk? About what? She could sense the danger swirling around them, a heavy fog that suffocated her very thoughts. Desperation clawed at her. The van's engine sputtered uneasily, a pathetic sound against the approaching shadow. She wouldn't be able to outrun them, but maybe she could outsmart them. As they crept closer, she noticed the glimmer of something metallic clutched in one figure's hand, an object swinging like a pendulum, a knife, perhaps. Anxiety wrapped around her chest like a vice. "Please," she croaked, the word escaping her lips before she could swallow it back. "I don't mean any trouble. Just let me go." They stood still, the laughter from before fading into silence, thick enough to make her ears ring. The figure closest flashed a grin that chilled her to the bone, teeth reflecting the van's weak headlights. "Trouble? Oh, you're in trouble already, sweetheart." Her instincts screamed at her to act. She racked her mind, scanning for anything, an escape route, a weapon, anything to turn the dominance back in her favor. The shadows felt alive, swallowing the light, curling around her like tendrils of a nightmare. The train whistle sounded again, an eerie wail that spiraled through the trees. In that moment, a flicker of hope ignited within her. The train tracks, they had to lead somewhere. Sarah shifted her gaze, noticing a narrow path that veered off into the underbrush. If she could make it there. Just as she made her decision, the figure on her side lunged, gripped the door handle, yanked it open, and in one fluid motion leapt inside. "You're not going anywhere!" Sarah screamed, the sound tearing from her throat as she jammed her foot down on the gas pedal. The van lurched forward, tires spinning, sending gravel flying in all directions. The figure inside lost their balance, crashing against the door with a grunt, but Sarah was met with chaos. A split-second decision had her careening down the path toward the train tracks. The headlights illuminated twisted branches and thorny underbrush, each sharp point a reminder of how close danger loomed. A sharp tug yanked at the back of the van, and she realized the other figure had somehow caught onto the rear door, holding on as if it was a lifeline. They shouted something, but the words were lost beneath the roar of the engine and the howl of the wind. As she barreled forward, adrenaline surged, blurring the line between sanity and instinct. She dared a glance in the rearview mirror. Both figures were now in pursuit, a whirlwind of rage and desperation driving them closer to her. Time felt warped, the seconds stretching as Sarah approached the tracks. Just before she hit the crossing, the ground trembled underneath. A freight train was not just a ghostly whistle now, it hurtled towards her with the ferocity of death itself. She couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. The train blared its horn, a haunting sound of impending doom, and she teetered on the edge between freedom and calamity, life and death. The figures screamed, engulfed in the bright lights of the oncoming train, their expressions twisted in horror. But it didn't matter. This was her only chance. As she crossed onto the tracks, the impact sent the van lurching forward, and all she could do was hold her breath. What other horrors awaited her beyond the tracks? The impact slammed Sarah back into her seat like a rag doll. She felt her bones rattle, every nerve screaming as the train's roar faded behind her. In that instant, every fear she had bottled up inside exploded into adrenaline. She had crossed the tracks, but at what cost? Her heart raced, its cadence drowning out the cacophony around her. The trees closed in, their gnarled branches reaching like skeletal fingers, the pavement of the road now a distant memory. She couldn't look back. She wouldn't let herself. In her peripheral vision, she glimpsed the headlights reflecting against the train, the figures lost to the night. But that only fueled her panic. They were gone, but were they? The van veered sharply, the terrain becoming more uneven. Twisted roots and exposed rocks jutted like teeth, biting at the vehicle's undercarriage. The engine sputtered again, each cough echoing her fears. She couldn't afford to stop. As if in a trance, her hands gripped the wheel tighter, knuckles white against the night. Ahead, a clearing appeared, a field, illuminated by the faint glow of moonlight. But freedom felt like a cruel illusion. She had to find shelter, a place to breathe, a chance to collect her thoughts. Her mind whirled, replaying every second of what had just happened, the anticipation of what lay ahead. As she plunged into the clearing, the van swayed and jolted. Sarah's stomach twisted as she spotted it. An old barn stood at the edge of the field, its decaying wood silhouetted against the silvery moon. It seemed abandoned, but it was better than nothing. Desperation clawed at her, urging her on. She turned the van toward the barn and skidded to a halt. The engine protested like a distressed animal as she switched it off. Silence enveloped her, thick as the shadows that danced around the edges of her perception. She hesitated, listening intently for any sign, the low growl of engines, the crunch of feet on gravel. But all she heard was the rhythmic pounding of her heart echoing her anxious breaths. The door creaked open, and a chilling breeze swept across her face, smelling of damp earth and something metallic, something foul. Sarah forced herself out of the vehicle, shivering involuntarily. Each step toward the barn felt like stepping into a grave heavy and foreboding. Inside, the darkness clung to her like mist. She fumbled ahead, fingers brushing against cold, hard surfaces. Blades of shattered glass littered the floor, crunching beneath her sneakers. Sarah paused, thoughts racing. What happened here? Was she truly alone? Suddenly, a noise sliced through the silence, a rustle from the far corner of the barn, low and soft yet unmistakably human. Frozen, she strained to listen, holding her breath. Is anyone there? She called, trying to keep her voice steady. The sound felt fragile in the vast emptiness. Silence answered her, then a whisper spiraled through the shadows, "You shouldn't have come here." Fear exploded in her chest like a firework. She turned, looking for an escape, but the weight of the darkness felt tangible now, pressing against her skin. It was inescapable. The barn door, now just an outline of light, would take her further away from safety, if there was any safety left. With one last glance, she bolted towards the entrance, but as she neared, she stumbled. A figure stepped into the beam of moonlight from behind a stack of old hay bales. Another haunting grin twisted beneath a cluster of unkempt hair, eyes glowing with malevolence. "Forgot about us, did you?" they taunted, brandishing a rusted scythe like it was an old friend. Terror gripped her like a vice. She turned back, but it was too late. The barn's shadowy depths seemed to close in, suffocating her courage as she tried to flee. What other horrors lurked in the silent corners of her nightmare? Would she find a way out, or was this where her final chapter began? Sarah's heart thudded violently in her chest as she stumbled backward, her breath hitching in her throat. The figure stepped closer, the glint of the scythe in the moonlight revealing jagged teeth and the grin that twisted its face into something grotesque. The air grew thick, charged with a sense of dread that seeped into her bones. "What do you want?" she gasped, voice trembling. They laughed, a sound like glass breaking. "We're just here to welcome you to our home." She darted past the figure, adrenaline fueling her desperate flight. Her senses screamed as she ran toward the dim light of the barn door, but cold hands reached out. A string of shadowy forms emerged from the darkness, their grotesque features illuminated by the faint glow as they moved, too close for comfort. "Don't leave so soon." Another voice chirped mockingly, its tone sweet like honey with a sharp edge. Sarah burst into the night air, the freedom of the outside world mingling with her panic as she veered toward the van. She could hear them slithering behind her, whispers wrapping around her heart like a constrictor. "Please. Just let me go," she screamed, scrambling for the driver's side door. Her fingers found the handle but it wouldn't budge. Trembling, she tried again, panic surging through her like wildfire. In the shadows of the barn, the figures moved closer. The one with the scythe twirled it as if practicing a deadly dance. "You've arrived at a feast, sweetheart. And you're the main course." "No." She turned again, scanning for any other escape routes, but all that lay before her was endless night. Suddenly, a distant sound broke the tension, a faint echo of laughter, mingling with the rustling of leaves. Her eyes darted in the direction of the noise, and in the corners of her mind, a flicker of hope ignited. Maybe help was near. For a moment, she hesitated, torn between the urge to run and the desire to find another way out. The shadows shifted, and the scythe glinted, a momentary glimmer of death looming closer. With wild determination, she pivoted on her heel, running towards the edge of the field, even as the laughter echoed behind her like a taunting chorus. The barn, once a semblance of shelter, now felt like a trap, suffocating and sinister. As she sprinted, the ground beneath her feet felt uneven, the wild undergrowth clawing at her ankles, dragging her back. She stumbled, catching herself just in time, her breath coming in short, painful gasps. The figures emerged from the darkness, shadows against shadows, their eyes glimmering. The leading one called out, "This is your last chance, Sarah." And then she saw it, the glimmer of a road sign reflecting the faint light of the moon. Hope surged anew. She dashed towards it, her legs screaming in protest. The far-off sounds of laughter began to fade, replaced by the rush of the wind in her ears. But just as she reached the sign, a sharp pain erupted from her ankle. She collapsed, hitting the ground hard, the chill biting into her skin. From the darkness, the taunting voice purred, "There's no escape. You belong to us now." Helpless, Sarah glanced back, her breath hitching in a sickening knot as she saw the figures gathering around her, closing in like a storm cloud. Overhead, the sky darkened, sealing her fate with an oppressive weight. What horrors awaited her in their hold, and what secrets did the night still conceal? With a final grunt of despair, Sarah prepared for what she feared would be her last stand, wondering if a miracle could still reach her through the thickening haze of her nightmare. The pain in Sarah's ankle was sharp, a jolt that screamed through her body as she struggled to regain her footing. Panic twisted her stomach, each breath a silent plea for the impending horror to evaporate. But as she lay there, the figures closed in around her like a vile, creeping fog, their laughter wrapping around her like millstones pulling her deeper into despair. "Please," she croaked, trying to crawl backward, the rough ground biting into her palms. But there was no escape. They surrounded her, their forms shifting, pulsing with darkness. The one with the scythe stepped forward, the moonlight glinting off its wicked edge. "Don't worry, Sarah. You'll find this night more enlightening than you think." Its crooked smile stretched unnaturally wide, each jagged tooth gleaming, thirsting for her fear. Sarah's breath became shallow, her mind racing for a plan, any plan. She glanced around desperately, looking for a way out. With a sudden surge of will, she reached for a broken branch jutting from the ground nearby. It was her only weapon, and she gripped it with every ounce of defiance she could muster. "Just let me go," she shouted, trying to sound assertive, but her voice trembled like a leaf in the wind. The shapes paused, momentarily taken aback by her fierceness. One shadow laughed, a twisted sound that echoed through the night. "Don't you see? You're part of the cycle now. Welcome to the night of your life, or your death." Heart racing, she swung the branch wildly, connecting with the leg of the nearest figure. It sidestepped, eyes flashing with anger, but she managed to break free for a moment. Scrambling to her feet, she turned, lunging into the darkness, hoping to lose them in the night, but the whispers grew louder around her, pestering her ears like 1,000 buzzing insects, filling her brain with dread. "You can't escape fate, Sarah. This is where you belong." She pushed harder, the trees blurring past her as she ran towards the faint outline of the road, the glimmer of hope flickering just ahead. But the laughter from behind crescendoed, a cacophony that threatened to drown her resolve. Then, just as the fleeting light of the road grew clear, a sudden hush settled, seeping into the air like poison. It felt wrong, too quiet. Confused, she slowed down, scanning the thick branches for any sign of her pursuers. Where were they? And then, a voice, soft and honeyed, whispered from the shadows, "You think you can run? We will always know where you are." Chills crept down her spine as she turned, her heart racing with dread at the realization, they hadn't given up. They were just toying with her. With renewed panic, she turned to sprint down the road, only to gasp as her foot struck something solid, a mound. She stumbled, narrowly avoiding a fall, and crouched to inspect it. It was a grave marker, its inscription worn and partially obscured by dirt and grass. In a fit of despair, she brushed away the debris. A name stared back at her, familiar yet unnatural: Sarah. "No, no, no," she rasped, the air thickening around her with every desperate breath. Was this her fate? Would she join the others who had been lost to the night? Just then, she felt a hand on her shoulder, cold and clammy, sending icy daggers through her veins. "Time's up, Sarah. Your party is waiting and they're hungry." The figures emerged once more from the shadows, their eyes gleaming with twisted hunger. And then Sarah understood, this nightmare was far from over. With terror surging through her, she bolted once more. But as she barreled down the road, the weight of the dark past followed close behind, and she could only wonder, would she find an end, or would she become part of this cursed cycle forever? Ahead, the road forked into darkness, leaving her standing at the precipice of a choice. Dare she find out what lay in the depths of one path, or would she risk it all to brave the other? What awaited her in their twisted game? Before she could think, Sarah made a decision. She veered left, into the deeper shadows of the trees. The path twisted like a snake, its rough surface underfoot. Each step felt like a gamble, the thrill of uncertainty weighing heavy in her gut. Behind her, the figures moved, their presence merging with the night, relentless and haunting. Branches whipped against her face as she pushed forward, branches tearing at her clothes and skin. She could hear their whispers now, taunting and sinister. "You can't hide from us, Sarah, you'll join us soon," she stumbled, her ankle collapsing beneath her. Pain shot through her, but she forced herself to get up again, her breath coming in harsh gasps. Every corner turned felt like a trap, each shadow stretching to clutch her. The path here seemed endless, dragging on, curving into a black abyss that a flicker of hope sparked in her mind, a clearing. She could see it up ahead, a pale light breaking the dense canopy. Maybe she could find help, or at least, a moment's respite from the terror pursuing her. With adrenaline spurring her on, she darted through the underbrush, a single goal driving her, but when she reached the clearing, her heart dropped. What should have been a sanctuary was instead a graveyard. Mist hung low, swirling above headstones marked with names long forgotten. The showcase of death filled her with a fresh wave of fear. One marker caught her eye, a name engraved there sending icy fingers through her spine: Sheila, her best friend from middle school. Sheila had vanished years ago, never to be heard from again. "Sarah?" The voice was soft but chilling, sounding like an echo from the grave. Sarah whipped around, her breath hitching, fingers clenching the broken branch she had wielded in desperation. A figure emerged from the shadows of the trees, pale and translucent, standing amongst the tombstones. Sarah, the ghostly figure whispered, her eyes hollow and dark. "Why have you come back?" Her heart racing, Sarah stammered, I didn't choose this. I'm trying to escape. They're coming for me." The ghost began to nod slowly, each motion sending waves of regret through the air. "You have to understand, this is where the lost come to find their peace, or to join the cycle. The dark keeps claiming more." Sarah's blood ran cold. "No, I can't stay here." As if on cue, shadows flickered at the edge of the clearing, their forms resembling her pursuers, eager and gnashing their teeth. Panic slammed into her, they had found her again. "Choose, Sarah," the ghost urged, her voice rising in intensity, swirling with fear. "Fight or surrender." Before she could process what was happening, the ghost's ethereal hand reached out, brushing Sarah's arm. An electric jolt shot through her, not pain, but clarity. In that instant, images flooded her mind, flickers of those who had come before her, trapped in the endless cycle. She saw Sheila's face again, lips twisted in a haunting smile, trapped alongside the figures that lurked in the dark. "Choose the right path." The ghost's voice rose in urgency, echoing through the night, with her heart hammering in her chest, the weight of countless eyes bore down on her. She stood in the clearing, breath heavy, eyes darting between the incoming shadows and the ghost's desperate plea. In that moment of dread, she realized she couldn't simply run anymore. The path was darker than she knew, a malicious game she had yet to fully understand. Which path would she take, the whispering darkness that hungered, or the unknown depths of the astral ghost seeking to free her from the grasp of the cycle? As the figures closed in, Sarah prepared herself to fight back. But would it be enough? She steeled herself, adrenaline igniting her will. Here was her reckoning, and with nowhere left to hide, it was time to take a stand. But which side would she find herself on when the dust settled, and would it ever settle at all? The shadows were closing in, their forms twisting and shifting like smoke. Sarah gripped the branch tightly, its rough bark digging into her palms, anchoring her in this moment of horror. Just then, the fog swirled thickly around her feet, amplifying the whispers echoing in her mind. It was as if the ground itself was alive, urging her to surrender. Sarah, the ghostly figure of Sheila, stepped forward, her faint form flickering under the chilly moonlight. "Don't listen to them. The darkness seeks to keep you. It wants your soul. There was desperation etched in Sheila's face, a frantic plea that tugged at Sarah's heart, but the shadows were relentless, looming closer, their voices rising to a fevered pitch. "Join us, Sarah. There's nowhere left to run." The air grew heavy with dread, a tangible weight pressing down on her shoulders. Sarah's mind raced. Would she fight for her freedom or let despair wash over her like the suffocating mist? She glanced at Sheila, who was now reaching out, a desperate expression etched on her ghostly features. "Fight. Don't let them pull you in." The entities that hunted Sarah seemed to sense her wavering resolve. They moved to surround her, closing off any chance of escape. Their eyes flared, burning coals of malevolence boring into her very soul. It felt as if the ground beneath her shifted, preparing to swallow her whole. Summoning every ounce of bravery she had, Sarah took a defiant step forward. "I want to be a part of your darkness. You want to claim me." With a fervent cry, she swung the branch at the nearest shadow, connecting with a sickening thud. A howl erupted, a sound that reverberated through the earth, shaking the stones beneath her feet, but Sarah could feel the energy of that ghostly hand still lingering on her skin, pulsing through her veins. Clear visions of countless souls who had given in flashed before her eyes. Bodies twisted in torment, forever trapped in their purgatory. "Fight!" Sheila's voice rang out again, stronger now, almost metallic. It was nearly drowning in the chaos. Determined, Sarah pressed on, shouting against the cacophony. "I choose life. I choose freedom." She could feel the shadows recoiling, the whispers faltering. The very air around her vibrated with her defiance, but as she glanced back at Sheila, the ghost's expression shifted from hope to sorrow. "You won't be able to escape forever. The cycle is relentless. Find the heart of the darkness, and it may set you free." The ghost faded slightly, her features blurring, but even so, Sarah felt the weight of her words. Before Sarah could process this, a flicker of movement caught her eye, a sinister figure breaking through the fog, a creature cloaked in absolute darkness, its form tall and grotesque, limbs elongated, stretching into the very void. It towered over her, a twisted grin slicing its face. Sarah froze. There was something palpably wrong about this entity. It radiated power and predation. It was not merely one of the lurid shadows but something far worse, something that craved fear. "Do you think you can defy me?" it hissed, voice like gravel. "You belong to the dark now. You always have." In that harrowing moment, all around her turned silent, the chilling echoes of the graveyard fading as she stood before this monstrosity that seemed to embody her worst nightmares. She had fought, chosen, and yet what more would be asked of her, and at what cost? With her heart pounding, Sarah took a step back, trembling as dread washed over her once more. This was the true confrontation, and as she faced the horror in front of her, a singular question pulsed in her mind: how much was she willing to sacrifice to escape the cycle? Was there truly a path to freedom, or would she join the countless souls hidden among the tombstones, forever entwined in the web of the dark, with shadows swirling just behind her, and the creature's eyes locked onto hers? She knew her next move would decide everything. But would it be a leap into light or a plunge into deeper darkness? The entity loomed over her, its presence like an eclipse. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, a raw desperation coiling in her chest. "What do you want from me?" she managed to choke out, forcing the words past the ice in her veins. A deep, rumbling laugh echoed from the creature, reverberating through the pit of the graveyard. "Your torment. Your fear. It fuels me, and you have so much to offer," it snarled, its eyes flickering with a hunger that sent a shiver spiraling down her spine. With her heart pounding, Sarah instinctively tightened her grip on the branch. It felt like a flimsy defense against the abyss, but it was all she had. A flicker of rage ignited inside her, battling the overwhelming dread. "I want to let you take me." As if the shadows recognized her resolve, they crept back momentarily, gauging her reaction. The moment felt fragile, like a spider's web straining under the slightest weight. She could feel their anticipation hovering, waiting for her to falter. Then, in defiance, she took a step forward. "I am not yours." Her voice echoed against the tombstones, reverberating back at her with a tinge of newfound strength. The ground trembled beneath her feet, as if the earth itself feared what she was willing to do. "Such bravery," the creature hissed, eyeing her with a twisted fascination. "But it will only lead to greater pain." Suddenly, the fog thickened, swirling in a deathly dance around her, oxygen draining from her lungs. It slithered up her legs, as if to bind her to this cursed earth. Voices whispered in her ears again, desperate and pleading. "Join us, Sarah. The darkness will protect you." "No," she screamed, shaking her head violently. "I refuse to become another lost soul." In that moment of clarity against the darkness clouding her senses, a memory surged. Sheila's parting words echoed, "Find the heart of the darkness." But what did that even mean? At that instant, the creature lunged, extending a skeletal hand towards her. Adrenaline shot through her, propelling her into action. She swung the branch wildly, feeling it connect with a solid force. An explosive scream erupted from the creature, shaking the very tombstones around her. Fragments of darkness fell from it like ash, swirling away in the wind. But it was only momentary. The beast grinned wider, eyes glowing with an unnerving intensity. "You cannot fight me, Sarah. We are bound by fate. You have always belonged to the dark." The shadows began to converge again, myriads of them emboldened by their leader's taunts, swarming, intent on suffocating her light. Panic surged again, robbing her of focus. "Find the heart," she shouted, her mind racing. But where to look? Fear clawed at her, tightening its grip. Then, she recalled the old mausoleum at the graveyard's end. That cursed place had always seemed off, a twisted enigma among the tombs. Could it hold the answer she needed? A shiver raced through her as she realized it might be the very heart of this nightmare. "Where are you going?" The creature's voice was drenched with mockery, the shadows clawing at her skin as she turned to flee. If fear rippled through her, it was electrified by urgency. Sarah sprinted toward the mausoleum, the fog swirling violently behind her. The shadows lunged, scratching at her heels. "Don't let them take you." Sheila's voice rang in her ears, a beacon within the storm. As she approached the mausoleum, its entrance loomed dark and foreboding. She hesitated, heart pounding as she turned back to face what was hunting her. The creature was gaining ground, howling in indecipherable fury, shadows swirling like a tempest. What lay beyond those crumbling walls? Would it be her salvation or a doom deeper than she could imagine? All she knew was that she had to find out. With one last breath, Sarah plunged into the darkness, knowing that whatever awaited her inside could change everything. Would she uncover the truth, or seal her fate? The answer awaited within, just out of reach. The mausoleum loomed ahead, its stone facade cracked and weathered. Shadows seemed to cling to it, teasing her dread that maybe this was not a place for salvation but a tomb for the lost. Yet desperation drove her. With a fierce determination, Sarah pushed through the heavy door, its hinges squealing in protest. Stepping inside felt like crossing a threshold into another world, one darker and colder than the night outside. Inside, a flicker of moonlight sliced through the crumbling stone, illuminating the dust motes hanging thick in the air. Stone coffins lined the walls, engraved with names and dates long forgotten. The stillness felt alive, pressing in around her, a reminder of the lives that had once thrived. She could feel their restless spirits hovering, whispering tales of warning as if they sought to reach out, to guide or to ensnare her. "Find the heart," she murmured, scanning the interior with frantic eyes. Was it a metaphor? Or was it something tangible, hidden away? Just as panic began to rise like bile in her throat, a low howl echoed from outside. The shadows were close behind, relentless and hungry. "Move!" she urged herself, tearing through the small space, fingers brushing over the stone. Something glitched in her mind, and she felt the presence of something profound buried beneath her. As if guided by instinct, she approached the center of the mausoleum. There, partially obscured by debris, lay a massive stone pedestal, a symbolic heart, a pulsing center of darkness that seemed to draw her nearer. Reaching down, she brushed aside layers of dust and moss. Underneath, an inscription caught her eye: "In darkness, we find our truest selves." It was cryptic, but she could feel a strange energy radiating from it, pulling at her. The shadows outside stirred, their whispering voices rising to a manic pitch, gnawing at her reason. "Stupid girl." The grotesque creature's voice rippled through the air, echoing across the mausoleum walls. Panic surged again, but something ignited within her, a flicker of clarity. This heart was not a gateway to despair, it was the essence of the dark cycle, an opportunity to break free. Sarah positioned herself above the pedestal and steadied her breath. "Enough!" she shouted, her voice strong and defiant. "You can't have me." She lifted the branch, feeling its rough surface grounding her fury. "I choose to fight." Without hesitating, she struck down onto the stone heart with all her strength. A sound like thunder reverberated through the air, shaking the very foundation. The shadows outside screamed, their howls blending into a cacophony of rage and despair. As the branch connected, a pulse of energy exploded outwards, illuminating the mausoleum. The shadows recoiled, twisting and writhing as if caught in a mighty wind. The heart shuddered beneath her, and for a moment, Sarah felt a connection, the pulse of countless souls fleeing, each striving for freedom. "Let them go!" she cried, her voice rising above the turmoil. "You're not their master anymore." The darkness thickened, but it was frail now, trembling at the edges. She could see the figures fading, their haunting whispers growing quieter, losing strength as they battled their own fear of the radiating light. As she struck again, the heart pulsed more powerfully, releasing a heat that enveloped her, and for a brief moment, visions of souls long lost flew past her. Sheila, and others who had vanished into the night, were soaring like shooting stars into a bright new dawn. Suddenly, the creature lunged from the shadows, eyes blazing with fury. "You think this ends here?" it shouted, but Sarah felt unshakable now, belief coursing through her veins. She swung the branch one last time, and the impact was cataclysmic. The shadow beast evaporated, its essence breaking apart and scattering into the night. Outside, the darkness hesitated before unraveling, and Sarah could hear the distant echoes of those set free, their collective relief washing over her like a warm tide. The mausoleum trembled and erupted in a flash of brilliance, consuming the last remnants of the shadows. Panting and stricken, she felt the weight of countless eyes lift from her shoulders. She stepped outside, the cool night air rushing over her skin, revitalizing her spirit. The haunting laughter and threats had dissolved into silence, a silence that was peaceful, echoed by the sounds of the night cicadas flicking back to life. In the distance, a train whistle blew gently, almost like a lullaby, assuring her that she was not alone anymore. With her heart still racing, she looked back at the mausoleum, knowing she had triumphed over the darkness, but also understanding her journey was far from over. The memories of those lost lingered in the moonlight, urging her to remember she was their salvation. "Goodbye, Sheila." She turned toward the horizon, filled with purpose. With heads held high, she stepped forward, ready to uncover the next path awaiting her on the other side of this unfathomable night. And you dare forget this moment. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next spine-tingling tale that could keep you up at night. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and send your support soaring. Flood the comments, tell us your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible journey. And for the love of all things thrilling, share this video with at least 5 friends who need a taste of horror and suspense. This is your moment as a true fan. Don't wait even one more second to show your commitment to these chilling stories.